I still remember the sound because nobody knocks like that unless something is seriously wrong. Not a polite tap. Not a casual knock. It was hard. Fast. Desperate. Like whoever was on the other side needed that door open right now. I jolted awake, heart already racing before my brain had caught up. For a second, I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the echo fade through the quiet house. The neighborhood was usually dead silent at night. No traffic. No noise. Definitely no visitors before sunrise. I grabbed my phone off the nightstand. 5:02 a.m. That time alone sent a chill through me. Outside, it was pitch black. No birds. No early commuters. Just that heavy, unnatural quiet that makes your skin prickle. I slipped on a hoodie, my movements slow and cautious, and made my way to the front door. Another knock hit before I reached it. Harder this time. Okay, I muttered, more to calm myself than anyone else. I cracked the door open. It was my neighbor, Ethan Brooks. Now, Ethan wasn't some random stranger. We've lived next door to each other for almost a year. But he was the definition of low profile. Polite wave. Quick nod. Maybe a morning if we happened to grab the mail at the same time. That was it. We weren't friends. We didn't hang out. We barely talked. Which made seeing him on my porch at 5 in the morning feel instantly wrong. But it wasn't just that he was there. It was how he looked. Ethan was pale. Like all the blood had drained straight out of his face. His hoodie was half-zipped, his hair messy, and his chest was rising and falling like he'd been running. His eyes kept flicking past me, down the street, toward the corners of the houses, like he was checking for something. Or someone. Before I could even ask what was going on, he spoke. Don't go to work today. That was it. No hello. No, sorry to wake you. No explanation. Just that. I blinked, trying to process what I'd just heard. What? He took a step closer, lowering his voice even though no one else was around. Just trust me. Stay home. Don't leave. Not even for coffee. I let out a nervous laugh. The kind you do when something is weird, but you're hoping it's a joke. Dude, it's 5 in the morning. You okay? He shook his head fast. Too fast. I can't explain. I wish I could. But if you go to work today, you won't come home the same. That line landed like a punch to the chest. I stopped smiling. Something in his tone made my stomach drop. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't exaggerated. It was flat, serious, like he was stating a fact he didn't want to say out loud. I crossed my arms, partly because it was cold, partly because my body needed something solid to do. Why shouldn't I go? Ethan swallowed hard. I saw his throat move. For a second, I thought he might actually back out, tell me he was messing with me, laugh it off. Instead, he leaned in just a little and said the sentence that still gives me chills to this day. You'll understand by noon. I stared at him. Understand what? But he was already backing away. He glanced up and down the street again, shoulders tense, like he expected headlights to turn the corner any second. Then, without another word, he turned around and walked straight back to his house. No goodbye. No explanation. Didn't even look back. I stood there in my doorway, one hand still on the knob, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. What the hell was that? I closed the door and locked it, then leaned against it, staring at nothing. My brain tried to do what it always does in moments like that. Rationalize. Downplay. Make excuses. Maybe he was having some kind of breakdown. Maybe he hadn't slept. Maybe he was drunk. Or paranoid. Or stressed. But none of those explanations fit the look in his eyes. That wasn't confusion. That wasn't panic without reason. That was fear. Focused fear. I went back to my bedroom but didn't get back into bed. I sat on the edge, elbows on my knees, replaying his words over and over. Don't go to work today. You won't come home the same. You'll understand by noon. My job popped into my head. Same routine every weekday. Same building. Same parking spot. Same schedule. I was the kind of person who never called out unless I was seriously sick. My boss knew that. My coworkers knew that. Taking a random day off felt wrong. Out of character. But ignoring that warning felt worse. Something deep in my gut was buzzing, like an alarm I couldn't shut off. So I did something I almost never do. I grabbed my phone, opened my messages, and texted my boss. Hey, I've got a personal emergency this morning. I need to take today off. I stared at the screen after sending it, half expecting some immediate sense of relief. It didn't come. The house felt different after that. Quieter. Every sound stood out. The hum of the fridge. The ticking clock in the kitchen. Even my own breathing felt loud. I kept checking the front window, peeking through the blinds, watching Ethan's house. Nothing. No movement. No lights. No sign that he was even home. Hours crawled by. As the sun rose, that initial panic started to fade, replaced by doubt. By 10:30, I was almost embarrassed. I made coffee, sat on the couch, scrolled my phone, told myself I'd overreacted. Maybe Ethan really was just losing it. By 11:15, I was convinced nothing was going to happen. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. For a split second, my thumb hovered over the screen, and that buzzing feeling in my gut came roaring back. I answered. And by the time the call ended, I knew one thing for sure. Ethan hadn't been crazy. And staying home that morning wasn't just the right choice. It was the reason I was still alive. By mid-morning, the adrenaline had worn off, and doubt crept in. The sun was fully up now, spilling through the blinds, lighting up my living room like any other ordinary weekday. My coffee had gone cold on the counter. The TV murmured some forgettable morning show in the background. Everything looked normal. Too normal. And that's what made me feel stupid. I sat on the couch, staring at my phone, replaying Ethan's words in my head like a broken voicemail. Don't go to work today. Just trust me. The more time passed, the more ridiculous it sounded. No explosions. No screaming headlines. No follow-up knock on my door. Just silence. I checked the time again. 10:47 a.m. Nothing. I shook my head and let out a dry laugh. Maybe Ethan was dealing with something personal. A panic attack. Paranoia. Maybe he'd mistaken me for someone else entirely. People snap sometimes. That had to be it. Because my life didn't have room for mystery. I wasn't a spy. I wasn't mixed up with criminals. I wasn't hiding secrets. I worked in financial compliance. Regulations. Reports. Risk assessments. Spreadsheets so clean they could put you to sleep. I didn't skip work. I didn't call in sick unless I had a fever. I showed up early, left on time, paid my bills, kept my head down. Boring. Predictable. Safe. That's why I hated how uneasy I felt. I tried to distract myself. Cleaned the kitchen. Checked emails. Scrolled through news on my phone. Nothing unusual. No alerts. No breaking stories. No mention of my office building anywhere. By 11:15, I was fully convinced I'd overreacted. I even drafted a message to my boss in my head, rehearsing how I'd apologize tomorrow. Sorry for the last-minute personal day. Everything's fine now. I imagined the look she'd give me. The raised eyebrow. The unspoken judgment. Then, at exactly 11:30 a.m., my phone buzzed. Not a text. A call. Unknown number. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. My first instinct was to let it go to voicemail. Spam calls were constant. Robocalls. Surveys. Warranty scams. I almost hit decline. Almost. Something about the timing stopped me. Noon was creeping closer. Ethan had been specific. You'll understand by noon. My thumb hovered, then tapped accept. Hello. The voice on the other end was calm. Professional. Too controlled. Is this Ethan? He stopped himself. Sorry. Is this Michael Carter? Yes, I said slowly. Who's calling? This is Officer Reynolds with County Police. My stomach tightened. We're trying to reach you regarding an incident that occurred at your workplace this morning. Are you aware of what happened? For a split second, my mind went blank. The room felt like it tilted. What incident? I asked, already afraid of the answer. There was a brief pause, just long enough to feel intentional. There was a violent attack at your office building, he said. Multiple employees were injured. Emergency services are still on site. My throat went dry. I wasn't there today. Another pause. Longer this time. That's concerning, he replied, his voice losing a bit of its casual tone. Because our records indicate otherwise. My heart started pounding. What do you mean? At 8:02 a.m., your employee key card was used to enter the building. Security cameras captured your vehicle entering the parking garage. Witnesses reported seeing you on the third floor shortly before the incident. The words stacked on top of each other, crushing. That's impossible, I said, standing up without realizing it. I've been home all day. I didn't go to work. Silence. Not the kind where someone loses signal. The kind where someone is processing. Then he spoke again. Can anyone verify your whereabouts this morning? I looked around my apartment. The empty couch. The untouched second mug. The quiet that suddenly felt hostile. No, I said quietly. I live alone. That's when his tone shifted completely. The warmth vanished. Every word sounded rehearsed. Mr. Carter, for your safety, I need you to remain where you are. Please do not leave your residence. Units are being dispatched to your address for further questioning. Questioning. I repeated. Why would I? The line went dead. I stood there holding my phone, my pulse thundering in my ears. My hands were shaking now. Someone had used my identity. My badge. My car. And whatever happened at my office, they wanted it pinned on me. I paced the living room, my thoughts spiraling. How could anyone access my keycard? My vehicle? I hadn't loaned my car to anyone. I hadn't lost my badge. Everything was where it always was. Unless someone had copied it. Unless someone had planned this. And that's when Ethan's voice slammed back into my mind like a warning siren. If you go to work today, you won't come home the same. I stopped pacing. He hadn't said something bad might happen. He hadn't said be careful. He'd spoken like someone who already knew the outcome. My chest tightened as realization crept in. If I had gone to work that morning, I would have been there. In that building. On that floor. At the center of whatever violence had unfolded. Or worse. Someone wanted me there. Someone wanted my face, my name, my life attached to what happened. And now, with the police on their way, I had to ask myself a terrifying question. Were they coming to protect me? Or to take me in? I locked the door. Drew the blinds. Every sound outside made me flinch. Tires on pavement. A distant horn. Footsteps in the hallway. I checked the time again. 11:58 a.m. Ethan had been right. By noon, I understood. And the worst part? I knew this was only the beginning. I stood there staring at Ethan through the crack in the door, my heart slamming so hard I could hear it in my ears. The hallway behind him was empty, quiet in that way that feels staged, like the calm before something ugly hits. He didn't look panicked anymore. That scared me more than the earlier desperation. Panic is human. This was something else. How did you know? I asked, my voice shaking despite my effort to sound steady. How did you know this would happen? Ethan didn't answer. He pushed the door open just enough to slip inside, then turned and locked it. The click of the lock felt final, like a line being drawn. My apartment suddenly felt smaller, tighter, like the walls had leaned in. They're not coming to protect you, he said quietly. They're coming to take you. My knees went weak. I leaned against the wall, trying not to slide down. Take me where? I asked. For what? He looked at me like he was deciding how much truth I could handle in one breath. Because you were supposed to be at work today, he said. Not as a victim. As the fall guy. That phrase hit me like ice water. Fall guy. I replayed the officer's words in my head. My badge. My car. My access. All pointing straight at me. I shook my head. No. That doesn't make sense. I don't do anything important enough for this. Ethan exhaled slowly. That's exactly why you were perfect. He moved toward the kitchen window and peeked through the blinds, scanning the street. A black SUV rolled past a little too slowly. He let the blind fall back into place. They flagged you months ago, he said. Your clearance. Your work. Your clean record. No scandals, no debt, no enemies. A name that looks good on paper and disappears easily once it's burned. My stomach twisted. You're saying this was planned? Yes, he said flatly. Down to the minute. I felt like the room was tilting. Then why warn me? Why knock on my door? He finally turned and looked straight at me. Because your father saved my life. That stopped me cold. My dad was an accountant, I said automatically. He barely knew how to work his phone. Ethan didn't blink. That's what he wanted you to believe. Something inside me cracked open. All those memories rushed back. My dad pacing late at night, lowering his voice when I walked into a room. That one time he grabbed my wrist and said, "If anything ever feels off, trust your gut." I'd laughed it off back then. He wasn't just crunching numbers, Ethan continued. He was auditing systems most people don't even know exist. Financial pipelines tied to biosecurity contracts. Government money moving through private hands. Stuff that should never overlap. My mouth went dry. And he found something. He found proof, Ethan said. And he tried to expose it. I felt my chest tighten. They said he died of a heart attack. Ethan's jaw clenched. He was silenced. The word hung in the air, heavy and ugly. I thought about the blocked calls I'd been getting lately. The weird emails asking if I'd be in the office on specific days. "You trust me?" Ethan asked. I searched his face. He looked tired. Worn down. Not like someone enjoying power or control. Like someone carrying a debt he never asked for. "I don't know you," I said. He nodded. "That's fair." Another knock echoed faintly through the building. Not at my door yet, but close. "If you stay," he said, "you become whatever they say you are. If you leave with me, you'll lose the life you know. But you'll keep the truth." My hands were shaking. I thought about my dad. About all the things he never got to tell me. About the warning in his eyes near the end. I took a breath. "Where do we go?" Ethan's shoulders relaxed just a little. "Somewhere off the grid. Somewhere they won't look first." The knock came again. Louder this time. Closer. I didn't look back. I grabbed my keys, my phone, and followed Ethan toward the back door. I didn't know if I trusted him. But I knew one thing for sure. Staying meant disappearing. And I wasn't ready to be erased. We slipped out through the back door just as the first black SUV rolled onto my street. No flashing lights. No sirens. Just dark windows and slow, deliberate movement. That's when it really hit me. These weren't cops rushing to help after an emergency. This was retrieval. Cleanup. The kind of presence you don't call for backup because you already know the outcome. Ethan didn't say a word as he pulled me toward his car. My legs felt weak, like my body was lagging behind my brain. Every instinct I had was screaming that if I hesitated for even 1 second, this story would end right there on my driveway. We slid into his SUV, and the moment my door shut, he floored it. The engine roared to life, tires screeching as we tore down the alley behind our houses. In the side mirror, I saw 2 of the black vehicles stop abruptly. Doors opened. Men stepped out, already talking into radios. They knew. My chest tightened. "They're following us, aren't they?" "Not yet," Ethan said, calm but tense. "They don't chase unless they have confirmation. Right now, they're still deciding if you're an asset or a liability." I stared at him. "That's supposed to make me feel better?" He didn't answer. We merged onto the main road, blending into midday traffic like nothing was wrong. Commuters. Delivery trucks. A mom sipping coffee at a red light. The world kept moving like my life hadn't just cracked wide open. I looked down at my shaking hands. Just hours ago, my biggest concern was a quarterly compliance report. A missed meeting. Office politics. Now I was apparently a wanted ghost in a game I didn't even know existed. "My name is ruined," I said quietly. "Isn't it?" Ethan nodded once. "By now, your face is already being tied to an internal incident report. Maybe worse. Once they finish stitching the narrative together, you won't just be a suspect. You'll be the story." I swallowed hard. "And if they catch me?" "They won't arrest you," he said. "Arrests require due process. You'd vanish. No charges. No trial. Just erased." That word sat heavy in the air. Erased. I thought about my apartment. My job. My old photos stored in the cloud. All the tiny proof that I had existed as a normal person. How fast it could all be rewritten. "Why warn me?" I asked. "Why not just let it happen?" Ethan glanced at me, then back at the road. "Because your father saved my life once." That stopped me cold. "He didn't even tell me what he really did," I said. "I thought he was just careful. Private." He was careful, Ethan replied, because he knew what happens to people who aren't. The road curved, and the city slowly gave way to industrial buildings and empty lots. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Then another. And another. I didn't answer. At a stoplight, I finally let myself breathe. My heart was still racing, but beneath the fear was something else. Clarity. Like a fog had lifted. Everything that had felt off for months suddenly made sense. The weird emails asking about my schedule. The unexplained audit requests. The time my key card had glitched and IT told me not to worry about it. I wasn't unlucky. I was being prepared. If I'd gone to work, I said slowly, I'd be either dead or handcuffed on the news. Exactly, Ethan said. Either way, your father's trail dies with you. That thought flipped a switch inside me. All my life, I'd played it safe. Stayed quiet. Followed the rules. Trusted the system. And that system had almost swallowed me whole without blinking. I clenched my jaw. So what now? Ethan took an exit I'd never used before. Now you disappear before they finish writing your ending. The city faded behind us as we headed toward the outskirts. My phone finally went silent, like whoever was calling had realized I wasn't going to pick up. At noon exactly, we passed a digital sign flashing the time. 12 p.m. A chill ran through me. That was the moment he'd promised I'd understand. And I did. I understood why Ethan looked terrified at 5 in the morning. I understood why he couldn't explain. I understood why he knocked like the world was ending. Because for me, it almost had. I leaned back in the seat, staring out at the open road. You know what's messed up? What? He asked. If you hadn't knocked, I'd be another headline. Another cautionary tale people forget in a week. Ethan nodded. That's how they like it. The silence stretched, heavy but steady. For the first time all day, I wasn't panicking. I wasn't running blindly. I was awake. And that scared me almost as much as everything else. What happens if we win? I asked. Ethan didn't smile. There is no winning. There's only surviving long enough to expose the truth. I thought about my father again. How he used to tell me, pay attention to patterns. That's where the real story lives. I never understood what he meant. Now I did. As the road opened up ahead of us, one thing became painfully clear. That knock at 5 a.m. wasn't a warning. It was a line in the sand. If I'd ignored it, I wouldn't be alive to question anything. I wouldn't be driving away from a life that was never really mine to begin with. At noon, I finally understood why Ethan was terrified. And why I was never supposed to survive that day. If this story hooked you, hit like so I know you felt it too. Drop a comment and tell me what you would have done in that moment. And if you don't want to miss the next twist, subscribe to Secret Twist Stories. Because sometimes, one knock is all it takes to change everything.